AC/DC would be formed in Sydney, Australia during 1973, by Scottish-born brothers Malcolm and Angus Young. Their style of music has been dubbed everything from heavy metal to blues rock over the years, but the band simply calls it rock and roll. Whatever you want to call it, they have always had lots of energy and kick-ass guitar sounds. There have been various theories about the origins of the band name, but the Young brothers has quickly disabused the various zealots and conspiracy theorists as to the origin of the name. The initial idea for the name was given to them by their sister Margaret, who saw the AC/DC electricity signage on her electrical sewing machine and suggested it to her brothers. The idea stuck and the band was called AC/DC because of the huge amount of raw energy the Young boys would throw into their shows. It would also be Margaret who came up with Angus' little schoolboy stage costume as well. When the Young brothers formed AC/DC in November 1973, the initial lineup would consist of Angus and Malcolm on guitars, Larry Van Cryde on bass guitar, Dave Evans on vocals and Colin Burgess on drums. By 1974 they had built a solid following and was subsequently booked as a support act for Lou Reed on one of his Australian concerts. Also during 1974 they were booked to play at the Hard Rock in Melbourne, a club owned by promoter Michael Browning. Browning was less than thrilled with their glam rock look and felt that Dave Evans was the wrong singer for the band. He did like the Young brother guitar playing though. Shortly afterwards he received a call from the band where they informed him that their manager had quit and they were stranded without money. He agreed to bail them out by allowing them to play another gig. After the gig he agreed to be the band's manager with the help of their older brother George, who was also in the music industry. The band conceded that Dave Evans was the wrong vocalist for the band and he was subsequently fired. The Young brothers also dropped the glam rock look and style and focused their attention on crafting the blues-inspired style they would come to be known for. They would relocate to Melbourne and played regular gigs at the Hard Rock Club. Dave Evans would be replaced by a friend of their brother George, Bon Scott. Scott, like the Youngs, was Scottish-born and immigrated to Australia with his parents. By this time the band had settled into Bon Scott on vocals, Angus Young on lead guitar, Malcolm Young on rhythm guitar, Mark Evans on bass guitar and Phil Rudd on drums. It would be this lineup that would record their debut album High Voltage in September 1974. Recording took 10 days. The album would initially only be released in Australia in February 1975. A little later that year they would release another single, A Long Way to the Top, recorded for the Countdown television show. Their sophomore effort TNT would be released in December 1975 without much fanfare and would be a New Zealand-Australia release only. The band would be scheduled to play at the Sunbury Pop Festival, but due to an altercation with the management of Deep Purple they would not be allowed to play and went home empty-handed. They were regulars on the Countdown TV show until 1977. By this time they had become one of the most popular musical acts in Australia. Michael Browning sent promotional material and demos to Atlantic Records, and in 1976 they signed an international deal with Atlantic Records. A compilation of the best material from their first two albums was released as High Voltage, which sold approximately 3 million units to date. The band subsequently moved to London and things really took off when they went on the Lock Up Your Daughters tour that was sponsored by Sounds magazine. Their third studio album, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, put the band on the map with hit singles such as Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap and TNT. A brief tour of Sweden followed, and after the tour they set new attendance records during their residency at the Marquee Club in London. They toured Europe extensively during this time and returned to Melbourne in late 1976 to build their finances and record their fourth studio album, Let There Be Rock. They returned to Britain in 1977 for a tour with Black Sabbath, where Bon Scott would become good friends with Ozzy Osbourne. The feelings were not so cordial between the other members of the respective bands. Mark Evans would be dismissed towards the end of 1977 due to disagreements between himself and the Young brothers. He would be replaced by Cliff Williams. With the help of Doug Thaler of American Talent International, AC/DC slotted in with the big names of the U.S. stadium rock circuit. They performed with such notables as Styx, Blue Oyster Cult, Kiss, Ted Nugent and Cheap Trick. AC/DC would release their fifth studio album, Powerage, in May 1978. It would include the hit single Rock and Roll Damnation. An appearance at the Apollo Theatre in Glasgow would be recorded and released as If You Want Blood You Got It. The band's big breakthrough materialized in the form of famed producer Mutt Lange, who assisted the band to produce their sixth studio album, Highway to Hell. The album exploded onto the US charts and put AC/DC in the top echelons of rock acts. The band began work on their seventh studio album early in 1980. However, tragedy struck on the night of the 19th of February 1980 when Bon Scott was found unconscious in his car the morning of the 20th of February after a night of heavy drinking with friends. He was declared dead on arrival at the hospital, and the official cause of death was listed as acute alcohol poisoning. For a while the other band members considered disbanding, but at the insistence of Scott's parents they decided to finish the album that would be called Back in Black. Various vocalists were auditioned, but after a suggestion by Mutt Lange the band decided to call AC/DC Tribute Band, Geordie's vocalist Brian Johnson for an audition. After his redention of A Whole Lot of Rosie they were suitably impressed, and after working through the rest of the list of applicants, Malcolm Young called Johnson on the 29th of March 1980 to offer him the job. Johnson was officially announced as the new vocalist on the 1st of April 1980. The band would finish the album and Back in Black would go on to be the second biggest selling album to date with 25 million albums sold worldwide. It would include hits like Hell's Bells, You Shook Me All Night Long and the title track Back in Black. AC/DC's next effort For Those About to Rock fared very well too. By the time that their next album Flick of the Switch was released, the band had parted ways with Mutt Lange and Phil Rudd was dismissed due to his ongoing substance abuse problems. Commercially the album was disappointing although it did well on the charts. Phil Rudd was replaced by Simon Wright. Fly on the Wall was released in 1985 and was produced by Angus and Malcolm. Critics called it uninspired and directionless. The band returned to the charts with 1986 Who Made Who that was also used as a soundtrack for the movie Maximum Overdrive. Their 1988 effort was called Blow Up Your Video and was a reunion of the band and producers George Young and Harry Vanda. They recorded 19 tracks for this effort and selected the 10 best tracks including the hit Heat Seeker. By the end of the subsequent tour, Malcolm Young announced his hiatus from the band to deal with his own alcoholism problem. Simon Wright also departed and was replaced by session drummer Chris Slade. AC/DC struck gold again with their 12th studio album The Razor's Edge. It included hits such as Are You Ready, Money Talks and the epic Thunderstruck. The album went multi-platinum and would reach the US top 10. The band would form part of the Moscow Monsters of Rock concert that was held in the former Soviet Union. Several sessions of the subsequent tour was recorded and released as live in 1992. The band recorded a single Big Gun for the Last Action Hero movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. By 1994 the band had invited Phil Rudd for a few jam sessions and subsequently re-invited him to join the band. Chris Slade was released and Rudd officially rejoined the band. From these sessions stemmed the 1995 release Ball Breaker. Although not as popular as their previous efforts, it nonetheless did well and included the hits Ball Breaker and Hard as a Rock. Stiff Upper Lip was released in 1999 and although it did well was not popular. Since then the band has released Black Ice in 2008 with some live recordings interspersed between the two albums. AC/DC was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2003. The band announced a hiatus during 2014. It was also revealed that Malcolm was diagnosed with early onset dementia. His nephew Stevie Young was brought in to complete the album. Phil Rudd was arrested and charged for the possession of narcotics and for hiring a hitman to commit murder. The hitman charge was dropped but the narcotics charges remained. Malcolm would die from the effects of his dementia on the 18th of November 2017. Rock or Bust was the last album he worked on. The subsequent Rock or Bust tour was rescheduled during 2016 due to a serious hearing loss problem diagnosis for Brian Johnson. Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses fame was recruited to fill in for the remainder of the Rock or Bust tour. In July 2016 Cliff Williams announced his retirement from AC/DC, citing the loss of Malcolm and Brian as two of the main reasons. AC/DC officially went on a hiatus after the Rock or Bust tour. The band published promotional material and sound clips on their official website in September 2020 and release date was slated for November 2020. It is to be seen if the naughty little schoolboy will hang up his guitar after the Power Up tour. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.